All right, so driving the 2025 Nissan Murano. Woo, it's been an interesting week with this car. So as you can probably tell, this is all new, and I'll be honest with you, when Nissan reached out about driving this car, I actually had forgotten that they made the Murano, and I feel bad admitting that, but I kind of had, so it's like, oh, cool. So I had gone to the Utah Auto Expo the weekend before, and I'd seen the new Murano there, and I'm like, dang, that actually looks pretty nice. And then, you know, the next week here I am in that car, and I'm like, cool. And but it looks nice, and I think that they did a really, really good job with the styling. I think that I think the main selling point for this car is the new styling on the exterior and the interior. If you are really, really sold on the styling with this car, I think you'll be pretty happy. The front looks so cool. The side, I've had actually multiple people compliment me this week and say, that car looks really nice. I like it. What is it? I'm like, it's a Nissan Murano. And they're like, wow. So good job, Nissan. Like, I think it has elements of the Aria, which I actually think the Aria looks pretty cool. And in my review of the Aria, I've driven it twice now, so I spent 2 weeks with the Aria before. I had mentioned, you know, in that review that I think it was a sign of good things to come, especially styling wise for Nissan. And I think, okay, we'll talk about the power in just a second, but I do think that, you know, the Murano has carried over a lot of those like really cool things that the Aria kind of introduced with their new, not totally new styling language, but it is like, you know, it's definitely updated from where previous Nissan products have been. So the interior is another highlight, honestly. Like the styling, again, looks really beautiful. I love this little like ledge here, and it's kind of metallic-y green. It kind of changes colors, which is cool. And the leather and like all the materials feel really good, and it like looks good. It's like wide open up here in the front. There's plenty of knee room and shoulder room, and you know, I've got to sit quite high. The regular seating position is very low, and the belt line is kind of high in this car. So I've had to raise up the seat quite a bit, which I don't know if you can see that it only gives me a couple inches of like headroom, and I'm 5'9", and mostly I'm longer in the legs than in the torso. So taller people, I mean, it just depends on your body, but I did find that the seating position is lower than I expected, but raising up the seat is just fine. And there's plenty of room, like in the back seat, especially for like 2 adults, cargo room. I mean, it's pretty much like your standard like mid-size, you know, crossover. It's very much your standard mid-size crossover. So again, styling inside and out is the main selling point here. If you really, really like it, I think again, you're going to be happy with this new Murano. And I think that, you know, good job to Nissan for, you know, progressing with that styling and making something that's pretty attractive. It's cool. As far as other things go, there's been a few interesting takeaways and quirks that I found that, that have been just interesting. So I'll start with the engine, okay, the powertrain. So this is a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, and it supposedly makes 240 horsepower, 260 pound-feet of torque, which isn't a ton, but I'll be honest, it feels like even less than that. And it I don't know if you heard that, you know, back a couple minutes ago when I was coming up that hill. In fact, here's another one. A little acceleration for you. I don't know. It's really interesting. It honestly kind of struggles, especially with this 9, which I was actually surprised to learn this is a 9-speed automatic, because it behaves a lot like a CVT, and it's constantly trying to like figure things out, it seems, and like where it should be gear wise and the power, and they just don't really seem to speak to each other that well. And so it's not all that like confidence inspiring. And And which leads me to the thought I had was, it reminds me of so much of the Aria. I feel like this is one of those cars, and I'm not like a huge EV fan, but I do feel like in this instance, this is an example that I think this car would just be better as an electric car, which is basically the Aria. But the powertrain is weird. Like the engine constantly sounds like it's just whining and straining, and I said to my wife, I was like, I don't know if this engine is gonna last longer than like 20,000 miles without many problems, because you can like feel like the boost and like it's working so hard to move this big SUV. And then the thing that's surprising is like we went like on level ground, even part freeway last night into like Centerville, which is not that far from where we live in Bountiful. And there and back, we only got 15.5 miles per gallon. And even on my longer commutes, which are like 22 miles one way, it's like basically almost 50 miles round trip, I was only getting 22 miles per gallon. I know this engine isn't broken in, but still, that is, I mean, here's the window sticker. Highway estimated 27, combined 23. And so here we are with this tiny, tiny little overstressed 4-cylinder. It is all over the place. And I'm only getting, you know, teens around town and low 20s, like combined and on the freeway. Which again, it's like, I see what we're trying to do with these smaller engines, but this is something that's been repeated, not just with Nissan, but with so many manufacturers. We're going smaller turbocharged engines because of efficiency and because of regulations or whatever. And it's just not working. It's just not working. Like, there's been very few that have actually come and like been, you know, worthwhile in terms of fuel economy. And they might still make decent power, but I'm getting like the same fuel economy or worse, you know, that I did in more naturally aspirated old like V6 engines. And I've seen this in so many, and unfortunately I've seen it now too in this brand new Murano. So that's the powertrain. The steering is, I don't know, like I said to my wife, I very, very much feel disconnected from the road in this. Like, it feels like I'm in just like a capsule that's moving me. Like, I feel very isolated from like the road, and which I know is what a lot of people are gonna like, but it's, again, it's not all that confidence inspiring. I just feel like I'm kind of along for the ride as part, and not really even being a part of the ride, if that makes sense. There's been a couple other like weird things. Primary among those is this button, these haptic buttons that are integrated into the dash. And this is what the Aria introduced. And I know it looks really, really cool. It does look cool, but man, they are a pain to use. Like, you've got to like get the right like pressure, and some of them are easier to like right there. Like the heat button is slightly easier to press than the cold, and same with like the fan speed. And it's just a pain. So like to turn up the fan, it's like you gotta like press it, and it's slow and looks cool, but yeah, I just would rather have buttons. And another interesting thing too is, I don't know if it's because I don't have my own profile set up in the infotainment, but every time I have to reconnect my phone to the Bluetooth. Like, my phone saves it, but I have to select it in my phone for the Bluetooth to come up, which again, it's like, this, why? Like, I don't know why that's happening. And then another thing too is that it takes forever for the heated seats to get warm. Once they do, they're decent, but it takes a while. And then this heated steering wheel, thankfully, does get pretty warm pretty fast, and then it gets like really, really warm. It's a good heated steering wheel. I have enjoyed that quite a bit. This faux single screen, you know, it's not a true, you know, single display here of the screen. It's actually two. It just is made to like look like one, which is fine. Like, it's fine, but it's like, you know, I'm not fooled. I'm not fooled. Also, these buttons are very, very hard to use. If I'm just simply trying to slide the cover back more, I can't get it. Like it, I don't know, guys. These buttons, the fit and finish is kind of tough, and then also like simple things like the, you know, the sun visor here. It's like, it's kind of hard to pull, and so yeah, anyway, just some other minor quirks. You know, that kind of sums up my experience. Like, the seats are comfortable. I don't think they're as comfortable as other Nissan seats, unfortunately. And if you've watched my other Nissan reviews, you know that I love the Nissan seats, the zero gravity seats that they have. Especially, they seem especially good in the Frontier for some reason. I still love the Frontier. Like, Nissan, that's the good stuff. Like, apply that thinking to your other vehicles. And the Rogue. This one just feels like something of a misfire. I actually really liked the Rogue, especially the Rock Creek edition. All that said, this thing comes out to be about 53 grand, which is, in my opinion, pretty steep for what this is. Yeah, it's nice, and it's like got good materials, it's comfortable, it looks really good, like stylish. If you are someone who prioritizes style above all else, you're gonna be happy with this car. If you're like, I don't really care how it drives, I don't care about the motor, I don't care about any of that, and you just want to have something that looks nice, like this Nissan Murano, I gotta say, does. It looks pretty stylish. But you can buy a whole lot of cool cars for 53 grand, especially used, but even especially new. You know, this is in really tough competition. And I genuinely am rooting for Nissan to come out on top here and like to succeed, because they're struggling right now. And I can see what they were thinking with this new Murano, but at the same time, I feel like if they really want to succeed, it's maybe going to take a little bit more than this. Like, have we driven the competition, you know? And is this really the motor and transmission pairing, and is it tuned the way, like, anyway, 53 grand is quite a bit to ask, but if you're into the styling and you love it, then again, I think you're gonna be pretty thrilled. So those are my thoughts about the Nissan Murano, and let me know your thoughts. I'm really curious what you think down below. And anyway, just thanks for watching, guys, and subscribing as always, and just leave your comments, especially if you bought one of these. Like, what was it that like swayed you? You know, the tagline on the window sticker is energetic elegance. I can see the elegance. Energetic though, I don't know. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.